Hi guys, welcome back to the channel for another video. Just in case someone brings it up, which I'm sure they will, this that you can see, which I might be touching during this video, get angry at me if I do, is a spider bite. It's a couple of spider bites that I got in my sleep. So I've just absolutely confirmed for anyone who's terrified to come to Australia that everything they've heard is true, but I'm fine. I'm not dead. It's just irritating. So if I'm touching it, yell at me in the comments section. So today on the channel, I'm going to do something I haven't done for 10 years. I'm going to surprise you all, and I'm going to do what I eat in a day, except that I'm definitely not, because I haven't done it for 10 years or ever. So I wanted to come and make this video because in the last 1 to 2 years, I've noticed that whenever I put up a question box on Instagram or I ask you what you'd like to see of my content, what I eat in a day has popped up time and time and time again. And it was a request that I didn't get for a long time. In the first 1 to 4 years of talking about recovery, I definitely got that request a lot. And I actually made a video talking about why at that time I instinctively just didn't feel like that was the kind of content that I wanted to contribute to the space. And some of those reasons I was a bit vague about because I didn't feel like I had the really strong insight into why. I just knew that instinctively it didn't feel right to do. Now that I've been recovered for years and I've been working with clients for years, I feel like I do have insight into the impact of this kind of content and to give some more specific reasoning as to why I've never done it, why I'll never do it, and overall why I don't think it does us a lot of favors in terms of awareness, in terms of how we can effectively reach and help people. Along with those requests, I've had a number of people over the last couple of years asking me, can you talk about what I eat in a day and how they're harmful and why they're not helpful? And I was like, I don't really watch recovery content, so I'm not super aware of what's out there. But I was like, I don't really see that anymore. Well, then I fell into a TikTok rabbit hole about 6 months ago and haven't been able to get out of it. And now I know what you're all talking about. There is a lot of what I eat in a day content on TikTok. And so now I understand why people are like, Mia, can you address this? Can you talk about this? I'm just throwing my 2 cents in to sort of add to the conversation or maybe get you thinking about how you're viewing some of this content. My position is not the be all and end all. I'm aware of that. I just think it's important for us to talk about this on 2 levels. One, again, how we're fostering a healthy community and how we're fostering healthy awareness mechanisms and approaches, not just for our vulnerable community within the eating disorder recovery space, but this also has a knock-on effect then in terms of how the general population, people with no awareness of eating disorders, and the media represent our issues, right? It's kind of like with before and after photos. We collectively kind of get annoyed at the media for only representing the stereotypical image of someone with an eating disorder, right? But then we have pockets of our own community who still stand by the fact that before and after photos are really effective and they help some people, so that makes it all okay. It then has the knock-on effect of upholding and legitimizing spreading imagery on a huge platform like we see in media stories, which is detrimental to all of us as a community. So there's 2 knock-on effects here. There's the micro and the macro, right? So the first issue I take with this is that we've actually inherited this trend from fitness and diet culture, especially back when Instagram and even Facebook started to be a thing. Influencers really came from fitness and diet influencers, and they would show us what they ate in a day. They would show us their bodies, usually a socially celebrated, not just accepted, but celebrated body. They'd show us everything they ate. They'd show us how they worked out. They'd package that up, shove it in an ebook, and sell it to people. And majority of them, not even qualified as a PT, none of them to date qualified as a dietitian, certainly not the ones that, we saw as the big kind of contributors back then, where they just simplified health and bodies and food down to eat like this, move your body like this, look like me. So the fact that we're seeing content in recovery spaces that is almost identical in format to a kind of content that for a lot of people really contributed to a lot of disordered beliefs, patterns, behaviors, styles of eating, even though the intent might not be the same, even though it may not be packaged up and put into an app, the fact that the format is even similar always made me feel a bit icky, right? Because if there's anything that should be polar opposites, it's diet culture and what we see in eating disorder recovery content. And let's be real, even if you aren't packaging up your content and putting it into an app or putting it into an ebook or whatever it might be, this is social media. If you are on social media and you are intent on having some kind of following, what you are marketing is yourself. The payoff is followers, is reach, is the reaction to your content. Another takeaway, this content is by a blinding majority made by people in conventionally accepted and celebrated bodies. In my 10 years in the online recovery space, I think I could count on two hands the amount of times I have seen a What I Eat in a Day made by an individual who doesn't fit that description. The trend only seems to be inclusive of people in certain body sizes and showing what they eat, because I really do believe it appeals to people as some kind of comfort to the less healthy part of their brain, that if they eat the way that this person is in recovery, then they might be able to be in a body like the creator they're watching, because that's what we inherited from fitness and diet culture. I've also noticed that creators who tend to make this What I Eat in a Day content are making a lot of food-focused content. And this then relates back to kind of the effective awareness-raising message that we're establishing, which really is oversimplifying one of the most complex mental illnesses and one of, at times the hardest to treat illnesses, down to food. This is just about food. This is just about weight. You do that and you're done. This kind of content really, really reminds me of something else that we all collectively hate, but is not reflected in how some of this content is produced, which is the old just eat a burger, which stems back to the belief that people believe in the general population, certainly in the media at times, that this is just about food. This is just about someone not eating enough. It is as simple as that. I have seen comments on news stories of people legitimately thinking that they are giving a really great solution to eating disorders by saying, just give these people marijuana. That will make them hungry. And then they'll eat and then there won't be a problem, right? So if we have content that is being produced at this rate and to this degree, that is normalizing that really, really unhelpful message, we only really have ourselves to look at when people are looking at us and saying, well, just go and eat a burger, just go and eat enough. Just, if we're not representing the nuance of recovery, that yes, it's about food, yes, it's about movement, yes, it's about body image, it's also about relationship with self, it's also potentially about comorbidities, trauma, anxiety, depression, by the way, which only a therapist can help you with. Any coach who says that they can help you with comorbidities, psychological or otherwise, or trauma, run. We are not trained to do that. It's really oversimplifying something that is just so complex and already so hard for people to understand. And we have to do so much work to untangle the automatic assumptions that people have about eating disorders. And if they went looking in the hashtags of What I Eat in a Day for eating disorder recovery, so many of their unhelpful beliefs would absolutely be reflected in what we're putting out into the world. I think it can also demonstrate that food continues to be like a central focus of your life and day as you're continuing on in recovery, moving into a strong recovery, ending up fully recovered, when our goal for our clients is the absolute opposite. If we're doing our jobs properly, food becomes a wonderful accompaniment to your life. It becomes about, necessity, fuel, connection, heritage, convenience, joining in, celebrating. It's all these things at once. Sometimes it's a couple, sometimes it's one. It has all these functions, but it is the background music of your life. It is not a central theme that you focus in on. If somebody held a gun to my head and said, Mia, you have to make a What I Eat in a Day, I would forget to film 90% of it, because food is just there as an addition. It's there to help me get through the day, to take care of myself, to enjoy the cooking process. It's not something that takes up a lot of my mental space, focus, or attention. And I think that this can give the impression, particularly if you're viewing content of somebody who's stating that they're in a strong recovery or fully recovered, and the majority of their content or a large portion of their content is focused around food, that can give you the impression that that's what's going to happen for you too. And I really hope that it doesn't, because that's one of the benefits of this work, is that it sits in its proper perspective and position. It is not as central as this content is implying it will remain as. There's also the issue that it's just kind of irrelevant to you. I know that there's arguments made for this, like it makes me feel better because it tells me if I'm eating enough or too much. No, it doesn't. Again, it's kind of something we've inherited from health messaging and fitness and diet messaging, which loses the nuance of you as an individual, of your health profile and needs as individual needs. If you're saying to yourself, well, that person is eating that much, so I'm eating too little, let's argue that that's helpful. There's obviously got to be the flip side to that as well, which I hear about a lot too, which is I see what they're eating and I believe I'm eating too much, especially if they're positioning themselves as someone who's in a strong recovery or fully recovered. If I'm eating more than them, then I'm clearly doing it wrong. Do you see what I'm saying? That we just lose the total nuance of you as a person and on this unreliable data, because who are we talking about? What are their health needs? What's their energy expenditure? Do you have 24/7 CCTV of what they're doing at all times every day? How many times have we seen people put out this kind of content and then kind of come out and retroactively say, I was actually super disordered when I was posting that. And even that has total sympathy and empathy from me, because you can have somebody in a full on relapse and they may not have an awareness level that that's what they're actually doing. This is why navigating these spaces with such discernment and being really, really cautious about what you're taking in is so important. You're trying to navigate your recovery on these moving, unreliable variables. You cannot say, I am confident in how much I'm eating because of what somebody else is eating. The only advice that you can possibly follow when it comes to nutrition and what you should be eating in the recovery process is a dietitian. That's it. We don't as coaches say, I can give you a meal plan, I can give you specific nutrition information. We can't. So some rando on TikTok definitely cannot. They are not a barometer of what you should be doing with your own intake. And even when people say, look, I find it really helpful because it tells me where I am, that's a real indicator to me that we're looking at those things on the basis of I'm going and comparing myself. And anything that is feeding that comparison, the healthy part of your brain is just not that interested in what other people are eating. It's why behaviorally, a lot of people come to me and they're like, I am so focused on what other people are eating. I'm always comparing what I'm eating to others. And as we move through our work together, they don't do that anymore. It's not something they have to actively stop doing. They're just not interested. And it's interesting with your responses, that was really reflected back to me, that hunch that I've had where, especially with clients, they would report to me when I was really unwell, I would go and watch what I eat in a day. So I was very food fixated. I was very comparative in terms of how I viewed other people's food. So that content, I loved it. Even if I felt like there was like a healthy self-benefit to it, looking back, it was really fueling mostly eating disorder comparison and fixation. And as they get better, guess which content they stop watching first? What I eat in a day videos. I think that's been the biggest clarifier for me in the last 6 years of working with clients and working on treatment teams, is that is the absolute predominant message that I get back from people, is that as their healthy part of their brain takes over, that is the content which is the first to go. That's the first thing that is not interesting, not helpful, quite triggering. I'm not going to make a blanket statement and say that all this food related content is unhelpful, or that what I eat, I personally believe that what I eat in a day are unhelpful, but I think they sit on that knife's edge, and depending on who you're watching, what stage of recovery they're in, where they're actually in recovery, you are trying to make choices for yourself on this very fine edge, right? And it's very easy to fall off it. Eating disorders love specifics. They love information. It's why, as part of our training at the Carolyn Costin Institute, we are advised, not advised, it is like mandated, we do not share specifics of behaviors, of food, of details of intake, because it's not safe, it's not responsible, but it's not relevant. It's not necessarily relevant to that person. We use our lived experience in generalities only as it relates to that client. Now, can you share food as recovery content in a way that the community is feeding back as helpful? Sure. Not something that I do, but I think that recipes are great, as long as they're not full of like diet products and like the lower fat option or whatever. Recipes are great. Little insights and snippets into what food freedom can look like. That's great. Kind of like I try to share, here's a Kit Kat that I had. Here's a salad that I had. Here's this pasta bake that I made. Here's a burger that I had out with friends. Here's some pizza that I had. Like days and weeks apart. And do you know what clients have said to me in the past? When I first started looking at your content, it really annoyed me that I couldn't go back through your feed and calculate how much you eat each day and what you eat each day. And I was like, there we go. I think recipes, sharing insights, sharing moments of freedom and flexibility, again, trying to keep it as general as possible, not detailing amounts or total, summaries of days of what you've eaten. There are absolutely ways that you can demonstrate how you've achieved flexibility and freedom, and that food is not such a focus. And I just don't believe that showing the fine detail of what you eat every day and doing that repeatedly could possibly be demonstrating to anyone that flexibility and freedom are words that you can use to describe your recovery or what you are showing as possible to other people. So they're my updated thoughts with me not hedging so much. That is why I will not make a what I eat in a day. I will ask you, please stop asking me to make them. It's never going to happen. It is never going to happen. And to, just take into consideration maybe how you're utilizing that content and what might be drawing you to it. Are you being really honest with yourself about which part of you is consuming that content? And are you being honest with yourself as to why that might be appealing to you? I always appreciate your feedback to make sure that my barometer of what is helpful is as close to helpful for the majority as possible. I know, like I said, there's arguments for certain kind of content that, well, if it helps some people, that's the odd calculation of being in this space. And I know that it's not easy, and my heart goes out to anyone who is trying to navigate this space as a creator. It isn't easy. It's a really tough space to be in. So this isn't demonizing anybody who's having a solid crack at trying to help their audience, or to demonize people who are seeking out that material. But I think that always refining and reflecting is a good way to go when we're dealing with subjects as serious as eating disorders. Much love to you guys. I will see you when I see you. Bye.